Welcome, everyone, to the Coaches Huddle 831 podcast. We are really, really excited about our next guest and interview. But before we get started, I first would like to say again, our emphasis of this podcast is to celebrate all the wonderful coaches and experiences of this community and the 831 community, not only in high school but throughout the this area. Like we always do, we always give tribute to our friend, my compadre, my brother, Coach Anthony Cotty. You'll always be remembered. All right. Again, I'm really excited to introduce our next guest, Coach Terry Espinoza, Alisal High School wrestling and softball coach. It is a great pleasure to welcome Coach Terry Espinoza. Now, Coach, he is a 2022 Salinas Valley Sports Hall of Fame inductee and is also honored to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from the California Wrestling Hall of Fame. He was born in Colorado and went to school there and was a 4-year varsity letterman in both baseball and wrestling.
So, football too.
Oh, and also a 3-year letterman in football. He held the record that has since been broken of 11 varsity letters for his high school. Amazing, Coach. Amazing. Upon graduating, he went to Colorado State College on a full ride wrestling scholarship and graduated with a degree in health, physical education, recreation with a minor in psychology. He then joined the faculty at Alisal High School in 1968. That same year, he began coaching wrestling for the Trojans until 1984. During that time, his teams claimed 4 league titles. The Trojans were perennial league and tournament contenders, and in 1975, under his leadership, the Trojans claimed a Central Coast section title. In 1985, Coach began officiating high school wrestling and was selected to officiate the CCS championships from 1985 to 1995. Great honor. Coach Terry Espinoza is a man for all seasons. And during his 36 years at Alisal, he also guided the women's softball team to 4 league titles and numerous CCS playoff appearances. He also served as athletic director for 6 years at Alisal, and that is when I first met El Coach. We are very excited, and let us welcome El Coach Terry Espinoza. Thank you, Coach, for joining us on the Coaches Huddle 831 podcast.
And I'd like to thank you for inviting me, and I'd like to thank you for what you're doing, pulling together coaches, because it's such a vital part of our educational system. And you got the ball rolling, and it's like a snowball rolling downhill. It's just growing and growing. That's awesome.
So, thank you. Thank you for that, Coach. It really means a lot to me coming from you. I'm amazed at the support, and not only from the coaches in the coaches community, allowing me the honor of interviewing them, but also from the community in general, and the people and the great comments that we've seen online. So again, thank you so much. So first, Coach, I had a question that was really on my mind for a while. So before we get started, let's talk about legacy. Looking back and reflecting on it all, Coach, how does that feel to have been a part of so many students' lives, not just athletes, but students' lives? I remember when we were talking about interviewing, we were interrupted like 3 or 4 times from different people just wanted to say hi to you, and just still feeling that connection with you, Coach.
My experience today with my former students, and I've got thousands of them. Some of my kids are in their 70s, and I can't move in this community without seeing my kids. And I get the smiles, and I get the hugs, and I get the love, and man, I appreciate it. It's a highlight of my day when I ride my bicycle, or anytime I go into the store, I know pretty much the people that work there.
Now, does that happen pretty often, Coach?
It happens a lot. And then my wife is a teacher, and we can't get through them all. And my daughters were teachers, and it's really a blessing. Just a lot of love there, and a lot of respect, and it just makes me feel really, really good.
Well, Coach, it's a well-deserved honor, Coach. So thank you. Um, so we always start off our podcast with an outside of sports question. Coach, what is something that you are most passionate about, Coach?
The two biggest passions in my life are my faith and my family. And the Bible says we're supposed to put God first, and I do, but it's tough. I've got a really great family. In September, my wife and I are going to celebrate our 60th wedding anniversary. I've got 3 great kids. I've got 8 great grandkids. We've got 8 grandkids and 3 great grandsons.
Wow.
And they all live within about a 15-mile radius, except those that are away at college or away in the military. And family is important.
Shout outs to the Lito clan, Lito, Tina, and Wendy, right? Wendy, 2 that I know very well that I went to school with. So shout outs to them.
And I have another family. It's the Alisal family. Again, I've received a lot of attention, but that attention really is a reflection of what my kids did for me. But Alisal is my family. I go to the games. I help when I can. And I'm a lifelong Trojan.
That's awesome, Coach. I would be remiss by not mentioning, your coach at home, right? Your wife, right? How was that experience for her? As coaches, man, we need that really strong coach at home, Coach.
Well, she's the bedrock of the family. I coached wrestling for 16 years, and then I coached softball for another 16 years, and even after I retired, I had kids that were coaching, so I went back and helped. And then in my retirement, my 60s, I went back and coached. And it got to the point where practice was starting later and later, and I coached for 2 years, and I told my wife, I'm not going to do it next year. It was the first time she ever said anything. Oh, I'm so glad. She allowed me to chase my dream all of those years. All the wrestling, it's a sport that 2 dual meets during the week, and on the weekend you have tournaments, almost probably 10 weekends a year, and gone till midnight sometimes because we were competing up in San Jose, and she never complained, not even once. She just backed my play, and it's just kind of amazing.
Shout outs to Coach Miss Espinoza,
Mrs. Head Coach.
Mrs. Head Coach, that's right. I have one of those too, Coach.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm very thankful.
Very good.
Thank you. So, Coach, growing up in Colorado, what sports did you play, or how did you pique that interest in athletics, Coach?
My brothers were wrestlers and football players, and they ran track. And as an 8th grader, I tried to play basketball, but my stature didn't allow me to do very well. So I would go up and practice as an 8th grader with the high school kids. And so wrestling was my main sport. That's where everybody was my size. Football was a whole different story because I weighed 140 pounds as a high school senior, about 120 pounds as a freshman, and a lot of big guys. And baseball was kind of my relaxed sport because football and wrestling are grinds. And baseball, it's not as physical, but I played 3 sports, and it was a blessing to me because when I was 13 years old, my parents divorced, and I was an angry, grieving teenager. I didn't know I was angry. I didn't know I was grieving. But athletics allowed me to vent my aggression in a approved way. I could be really tough and really rough, especially in wrestling. You got to be tough and rough in wrestling. And my coaches literally adopted me. My dad was gone, good man. He loved us, but he was flawed like the rest of us. And it was my mom and I. My brothers went away to the military, and sports became my North Star. They kept me out of trouble. After school, they drained my energy, and they taught me a value system that has helped me to have a really good life. If you apply the values you learn in wrestling to life, dedication, hard work, teamwork, sacrifice, you get knocked down, you get back up. Those are things that happen in life.
So it's you would probably agree to say that sports is just a byproduct to life, right? And how to be able to, like you said, to be able to get up or work with others and not give up, right?
Certainly my life. I mean, my coaches at the state meet my senior year, I won a few matches, but my best buddy was the state champion. He beat 3 different state champions in his division. He was the outstanding wrestler of the tournament, and all the coaches in the area, they wanted him to go to their school. And my coaches negotiated my scholarship, and they said, "We'll send Kenny to your school, but you got to take Terry." And so I kind of got in on his coattails. And the Vietnam War was going on, and had I not ended up in college, I would have ended up in a rice paddy. And college gave me that choice. I had the choice whether to get an education or join the military.
It's not how you get there, right? It's what you do with it, right, Coach? Yeah. So your experience, you competed in college. How was that experience like, Coach?
College was a revelation to me. There's nobody that I ever can recall crossed our doorstep that had a college education. My father was a coal miner. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. My uncles were all, my dad worked in a factory. They were factory workers, and no college degrees. So when I got to college, I was a babe in the woods. And the college coach got a hold of me and put me in this network of wrestlers, and they taught me the ropes, and eventually I figured things out. But it was just, everything was strange, everything was new. Met people from all over the world. I'd never met anybody off my block, so it just expanded my horizons in a big way.
Was it well, I know you touched on it. I mean, was the college far away from where you grew up? Or?
It was 50 miles up the road, but in those days, 50 miles was a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it could be a little bit of a culture shock, right?
Oh, big time. Big time. I was used to beans and tortillas and frijoles and salsa, and I lived in the dorm because they provided meals for a training table, and I had mashed potatoes and stuff that I hadn't encountered before. So again, just every aspect, people from different parts of the world, different ideas, different values.
Did you ever feel? I won't say quit, but did you ever feel like this wasn't for me, or this is too much, or?
No.
I don't.
No, I had a goal when I went to college. I wanted to coach wrestling. That was my goal, and I figured out I'd have to teach school if I wanted to make a living. So that was what I wanted to do. My coaches were amazing. They inspired me to do what I did in high school and in college, and I wanted to do for my kids what they did for me.
So touching on that point, Coach. So you kind of already mentioned about your coaches, but including them, who are some of your mentors, Coach, or influences?
Well, first of all, Coach Fascinello and Coach Wallenweber, they're my coaches in heaven now. But at Alisal, Chuck Felice, he's passed on. Corky Hedden, he's passed on. Jim Rear inspired me a lot just by watching him and seeing the kind of things that he did.
Yeah.
One of the biggest influences in my coaching career was a guy by the name of Vern Baxter. Vern Baxter was at North High when I got here. I arrived in Salinas, I barely turned 22, and I didn't get it my attitude was, I'm going to be the best wrestling coach that this town has ever seen, and I'm me, I. And Vern Baxter, everybody loved him, and everybody respected him. And I admired him, and he never said, you should do this, you should do that, you should do. He just was Vern Baxter, and I modeled my coaching and my teaching after Vern. And early on in my career, I figured out it wasn't about me, it's about the kids. And at that point, my teaching career took off and my coaching career took off.
Amazing.
So Vern Baxter was huge influence.
Amazing, Coach. So you mentioned some iconic names from the 831. Coach Felice, Coach Rear, Coach Haddon, and then including yourself, 3 out of those 4 were around when I was in high school. And as a player, as a student, you don't grasp the magnitude of their influence right until now. You mentioned, like I said, you mentioned those names. Anybody in the 831 knows who they are, and they were in one place at one time.
Right.
That's amazing.
Would you like to know some secrets about him when he was in high school?
I don't have.
What happened at Alisal stays at Alisal.
That's true. I'm glad. I'm really glad. I was.
No, he was always been a great kid. That smile, he's had it since he was 14 years old.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you. I think, thanks to the grace of God, I figured it out. I was looking for a lot of influences, and fortunately, I found a lot of great ones in coaches. Coach Norris was my football coach.
Yeah.
Even after high school, 30 years later, was a big influence, and was not only a big influence, but like yourself, was readily available for me. And he lived, Fresno, right? And he drove down to sit down and just to meet my son.
But he came back to coach at Alisal when I was athletic director. I recruited him, and you talk about a coach, man. This guy was.
Well, when we first saw him, I thought he was Hulk Hogan. I remember he was.
He had the mustache.
He was in the old weight room, and he's benching 45.
Oh, of course.
And everyone was like, "Who is this guy?" And then we find out he's a Trojan through and through. He's a graduate, right? And like I said, he influenced us how to be better men, and better citizens.
And you talk about a coach of champions. He built a program, a little bitty school, a little bitty town.
Yeah, Fireball. Yeah. So again, we pay tribute to all those coaches, right? And and their legacy as well. So, Coach, these are questions, about coaching philosophies, right? And some of the things that you felt were necessary in building your program. So, in coaching, Coach, what are some of your non-negotiables? Especially since you had excellence in multiple sports.
Discipline. I was disciplined myself. I had to be disciplined. I never missed a practice. I never was late. I never swear in practice. I'm a teacher, and that mat was my classroom, and that softball field was my classroom. So I practiced self-discipline, I modeled discipline, and I required it of my kids. I had one rule that superseded all rules: no practice, no play. And it cost me a championship early on. But that discipline, that it's not fair. Somebody, pretty boy, I'm the best, and I can miss practice, the coach is going to play me. And I didn't bend. So it was a question of discipline that allowed our teams to success and become the champions they became.
Do you think that's changed now? I heard a quote that coach was a coach complaining, saying, "Oh, the kids are different. Kids are different." And another coach said, "No, the kids are the same. It's that you're different or you've changed."
Society changed. I was a history teacher.
Yeah.
And one of the things I taught my kids was there are not a lot of things that you can predict about the future, but the one thing that you can bet on is change. And societies change, kids change, technology changes. My gosh, technology has impacted our world so much. Early in my career, Alisal was kind of looked down on. It's not anymore. It's a top school in the county. But at that time, people would look down on us and stereotype us, and these kids are a bunch of gangbangers, and before that, a bunch of Okies. And very few years into my career, my kids would come back, graduates, and say, "Coach, it must really be hard with those kids today." And my stock answer was then, and my answer is now. That's what they said about you. The Alisal kids are special. Period. The end. Best kept secret. Well, it's not a secret anymore, but it was the best kept secret in Salinas. My brother taught at another school that would remain nameless, and he would tell me things that happened to him at that school, that high school, related to parents, related to administrators, related to students, that I've never experienced at Alisal. The kids, the respect of the kids. I was maestro, el coach. ¿Dónde está el coach? That was me. And the respect that those kids have, the work ethic, my gosh. I sponsored for years a group called Close Up. We take kids to Washington, D.C. It was about $1,400 for each kid. And we raised money year round. And we did air shows, and we did the rodeo, and we did sold popcorn and candy and what have you. But I would make a phone call to the air show, and I'd say, "Can my kids work?" Or to the races, "Can my kids work?" And the next year they'd call me, "Coach, you got some kids for us." And that same thing is true today. Those kids they're hungry.
Yeah. Absolutely. Shout outs to the administration,
Amen.
all the personnel and coaches at Alisal High School, and both as proud alumni of Alisal. We're very, very, very proud of the school. And now just shout out to Coach Estrada, one of our former interviewees as well.
Guy that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, it was a refreshing interview.
Yes.
Definitely have a lot of respect for Coach
And
Estrada.
he's taken the program and the idea that I don't want to be in the lower league. We can do it. He had 100 kids in the program. We used to lose kids because of grades. In football, we'd start out with maybe 50, and we'd end up with 28, and we couldn't compete with these guys who were rotating in. 3 kids in his program were ineligible. That's
the whole program,
incredible.
Coach. Yes,
That's incredible.
It's a credit to him and to
And the other coaches.
all those involved. Yeah,
Coaches,
absolutely. So, Coach, what were some of your non-negotiables? I know you touched base a little bit about it right now, about discipline and being consistent and your rules and your guidelines. What are some of the other things that you would want?
3 more were respect. You respect yourself. You respect your teammate. You respect your school. Because people are watching you. You're wearing green and black and white. And you have to be your best self out there, because there's a saying in Spanish, los de abajo, those down below, and you don't want to feed that. And so respect is really, really important in my classroom, on the mat, on the softball field. Respect, discipline and respect. Somebody asked me, in fact, you might have that question, what would you do differently coaching today?
Great question.
And I don't think I'd do anything different. I think it might be tougher, but I think that you're building people's lives as a coach. We have much more influence than we deserve. They'll listen to us, or they won't listen to their classroom teachers. They'll listen to us when they won't listen to their parents. And it's a heavy responsibility. Somebody told me, kids are always watching. You can't fool kids. If you're a phony and if you're cutting corners, they know it.
Yes.
They know it.
Absolutely, Coach. So, what are some of the challenges that you have faced as a coach?
Well, I started my career in 1968. In the 70s, the drugs, marijuana mainly, came into play, and a lot of my kids got caught up in that stuff. I lost some athletes, so I buried some athletes because of drugs. And that was always a big challenge to create a safe space for them on campus so they weren't out in the streets, to have year-round workouts so that their time and their energy was used up. Because there are people out there that want to teach our kids things that we don't want them to learn.
Yes.
In wrestling and in sports now. We didn't have the club teams, but in wrestling, it's important that you wrestle freestyle. You get a whole other season out of it. It's important that you go to camp because that's who you're competing.
And opposed in high school, was it a different type of wrestling?
No,
is it still freestyle, coach, or?
No, it's called folk style.
Folk style.
Freestyle is what they do in the Olympics. The rules are different, points are different, same basic idea, similar moves.
Mm-hmm.
But folk style is what we do in high school and what they do in the colleges. And then freestyle is what they do in the Olympics and the World Cup and those sort of things.
Which one is more challenging, or
They're just different sports, different ages. Males don't reach their peak physical peak till about 33 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So the world champion wrestlers are late 20s, 30s, into their mid 30s. Those are the world champions. So that's a huge difference.
Right on, Coach. So you also served as the athletic director at Alisal for 6 years, coaching or managing multiple sports. How did that, what was that experience? And also a lead-in question is that what is your thoughts on the growth of women's athletics, and especially in women's wrestling, Coach?
First question. I was teaching 5 classes. I had a prep, and I was athletic director for the girls and for the guys. Mm-hmm. And our budget was, we didn't have much of a budget. And as you stated earlier, coaches can be very selfish about their programs. My program, my program, my program. And it was a struggle because I had a family, and I was overcommitted too. It was crazy. I was officiating and coaching 2 teams, and I wanted to be all things to all people. I had learned that you can't do that, but it was a struggle being the athletic director to manage your time and manage your energy, and I learned a lot. And one thing that I learned is I have infinite patience with kids that act like kids, but coaches that act like kids. I really had to restrain myself.
I would have loved to have been a fly on that wall, right? But yeah, So again, the second question about women, the growth of women's athletics.
Well, I'm a girl dad. I've got 2 girls, and both of them started on CCS championship teams at North High. And I encouraged athletics from the time they were young. 2 girls and a boy, and I wasn't much of a baseball player. And I had this friend that was a shortstop, and he never looked up. And so I would take my 3 kids out in the street, and I'd have baseball and a softball, and we'd play bobbles. I'd play catch with one until they bobbled the ball. And if they made a bad throw, no, it's time for them. And sometimes when I got tired, I'd throw down ball down the street, go to the next one. But that was something that we did in our family, and it produced some pretty good ball players.
Right on, Coach. Right on. So, going back to now, our current state of the game, right? At least in high school sports. What are some of the issues that are currently facing high school sports?
Well, I've got a pretty good window into high school sports still because I'm a lifer. I don't know how many contests at Alisal I go to, but I go to football, I go to wrestling, I go to baseball, I go to softball. And I see and I hear a lot from the coaches, and I think one of the biggest challenges is social media. It's a big challenge in education because there are influences out there that way out of proportion to what they should be, and that's a big challenge.
Are you a proponent, or what is your view on? I know there are other countries that are prohibiting or banning social media up until a certain age, like how we have in
Australia.
Australia, I think France wants to do it as well.
In the district next year, they're going to lock up the phones, and I think that's great. I would, when I retired, was 2004, and phones were, especially smartphones, were something people didn't have.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to fight that battle. But social media is huge. This current generation is very sensitive, and
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
well, they take offense a lot easier than
Impulsive, reactionary.
just you offend me. Oh, okay, sorry. And that I see that as tough. I see it in with my grandchildren. And I don't think I would be able to tiptoe as a coach. I did it the way I did it. The times were different, but I think it would be effective now because kids need discipline. Kids need to learn respect.
It's the maybe a little bit of that old school is needed, or maybe it wouldn't necessarily be.
Like I said, if I was coaching, and I coached in my 60s,
Mm-hmm.
like 10 years ago, and I wasn't the head coach, so I didn't have to be the bad cop, but I still modeled the kind of discipline that I said. I never missed practice. I didn't swear, and I worked hard, and I modeled those kind of things, and that's a discipline thing, and it's a respect thing too.
You model those expectations you want.
Absolutely,
right?
you got to walk the walk.
Oh, yep, absolutely, coach. So, how do you know, when you were a coach, how did you prepare for a season? What did that look like? You know, from off season to season to in season to.
I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier. Freestyle was very important because I knew that the kids that we were going to be competing in were wrestling freestyle, and you can take a freshman in the summer to 10 meets. He comes back as a junior on the mat, and so freestyle. I always emphasize that. I always encourage my kids to go to freestyle. I would take them to freestyle after a long, hard season. I would take them to freestyle, and everything was up in San Jose. We didn't have any tournaments down here. Camps are essential, and I sent my kids to camp. We had to scramble for funds, and because again, at Alisal, the parents didn't have a lot of money. But if you want to compete, you have to be able to do what your competitor's doing and then more. And so there's so many clubs now, and I'm sure you know how expensive it is to do club ball, the travel and the uniforms, and parents have to pay for all that stuff.
It's year round, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think? I know that the specialization, right? That's the specialization, the one sport athlete. You were a 3, 4. You could have, if you wanted to, a 5 sport athlete, right? If you could.
I know where you're going.
Yeah. So are you a proponent of that multi-sport athlete, or are you okay with those specializations?
I think specialization robs a kid. It really does, because it's a high school sport. None of them, the percentage of kids that are going to turn pro is so minuscule. And if you tell a kid, well, you can't play football because we're going to have off season, not practice. That's what happens, not practicing. It's just wrong. The kids are developing their minds, they're developing their bodies, and you're robbing the kids if you force them into, or coerce them, or whatever it takes to do.
Sure. Coach, if it had a ball and I would play it, and I think that's the way a lot of us grew up back then,
And that was part of what saved me. I said that, fall it was football, winter it was wrestling, spring it was baseball, and my mind and my energy was occupied in something positive. But again, when I grew up in Colorado, that was happy days. Gangs weren't around, weapons weren't around. It was whole different ballgame. So my eyes really opened up and I came to sleep. Whoa.
How was that? That experience. Going from that environment and coming to East Salinas, and then the like you said, the stigmas, the stereotypes. the influence, the violence that was there, is still there, which is like that in a lot of communities, and having to, not only teach but coach and to mentor these young men and women.
One of the saddest things that ever happened is one day, a young lady came in after practice and she said, "Coach, would you give me a ride to the funeral home? My boyfriend is."
Wow.
And that's heartbreaking, man. And that is, she was a great kid, and that broke my heart. But again, the more kids you can get involved and keep involved, those folks are out there that want to lure them into the gangs. And the kids need attention. Human beings need attention. So
they need an alternative, right, Coach?
Absolutely.
To that
Absolutely.
way of life, there's other expectations out there.
And again, I just look at my experience, and I can't imagine. No, I can't imagine where I would have ended up if it wasn't for athletics, even in high school.
Same here.
I was a dumb kid. I did a lot of stupid stuff.
Same here. Again, like if it happened now, right? At least we didn't have somebody recording us.
No evidence.
All that dumb stuff, right?
No evidence.
Right. So, Coach, this is my the question I've been wanting to ask you for a while. What was or is your most proudest moment as a coach?
I think I talked about that earlier when I see you and I see my athletes and my students and the love and the respect that makes me really proud, because I thought I was fooling people. And I must have done something right, because that makes me, it fills me up with joy, and of course our CCS championship, there's only been like 4 in the school still. Yeah. And we were the coach hadn't won it first, and then we won it, and I'm very proud of that. But my softball teams, we talked earlier about the kids that passed through my program, and you reminded me of some of the names, and there's just so much joy in those relationships that we developed that still go on today.
I still remember Coach Larry. Coach Larry.
Coach Larry.
Yeah, Coach Larry.
Coach Larry. I had some great assistant coaches.
Always very positive.
Yeah.
Very positive. So, Coach, a couple final questions. What is one final thought or quote that you want to leave with our listeners?
I had an educational hero. His name was Jaime Escalante. And he gave me an anchor for my teaching and coaching philosophy. And what he said was, students will rise to your level of expectations.
It's one of my favorite quotes.
And I had high expectations, like I said, for myself. And I had high expectations for my kids. And my kids were able to rise to the expectations and exceed them in a lot of respect. I'm really proud of that. And that was an anchor for my classroom, and that was an anchor for my coaching.
I know, Coach.
High expectations.
I know.
We don't want to go in the back door. We want to come in the front door.
Amen to that, Coach. Now, so for our listeners that are inspired by this, Coach, how could they get a hold of you, or how could they contact you?
Best way is social media. You can type my name in on Facebook and Messenger. That's pretty common. I hear from a lot of my kids that way.
Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. No, I'm a teacher, and I'm a learner.
Lifelong learners, right?
Lifelong learner and a lifelong teacher. I love teaching and mentoring young folk.
Well, you're still teaching us many lessons, Coach, and I appreciate that tremendously.
That's the way I'm wired.
So, is there anything that we haven't talked about, Coach, that you'd like to share?
I talked about my family, so let me talk about my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. No, I'm not going to go there. But my faith has had such a huge influence on my life, a guidepost for my life. And I know this is a sports talk show, but
it's an open forum, Coach.
No, again, boats have anchors that go down. I have an anchor that goes up.
Amen, Coach. Amen. Amen, Coach. Thank you for that. So I want to thank Coach Terry Espinoza and Coach for joining us on the Coach's Huddle 831 podcast. It has been a sincere pleasure, Coach. Thank you for doing this. Thank you so much.
Been my pleasure.
Thank you, Coach.
Love you, man.
Thank you. I love you too, Coach. Love you too. So, if you haven't yet, you're still waiting, go out and support one of our local high schools in whatever sport. You might not have a vested interest or somebody that you might know, but you might become a fan, not only of the school, the sport, but some of our exceptional student athletes. So if you ever get an opportunity, please do so. And if you ever end up at an Alisal game, don't forget to say hi to Coach. You'll probably see him there. Again, thank you all for your support. Please continue to follow and send out your positive comments and any suggestions that you might have. We are open and again, thankful for all your support. Again, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. Good night.